Hello, friends. Welcome back to Saturday Evenings Posted Mostly with me, your host, Trevor Stewart 1308. And we are here with the ASOC Prod Cat and the Peanut Gallery. We are doing breakfast with the Kush Gang today. So we have a bunch of treats there. But first, today's pre-rolls brought to you by The Hidden Leaf, downtown Charlottesville, 105 West Main Street on the downtown mall above the Brick, Suite 200. A great place to go with some great buds to get some great buds. A bud, and the only thing better than their bud is their customer service. Also, they have the lowest prices in town, according to my own personally highly biased research. By which I mean I was incredibly high when I did my biased research. Don't forget to check the website for times and events, such as Frosty Fridays, where you can find our other two sponsors. Kush Gang, who will be joining us for breakfast this morning. Well, may be joining us in the chat, but we will be eating breakfast from the Kush Gang this morning. And Firehouse. Where there's smoke, there's Firehouse. A note of disclosure. We are a political show. We will be discussing political topics. All of the political opinions you hear herein belong to us, the expressor of the opinion, and or the channel, and possibly the parent company. However, they do not belong to any of our sponsors, including Hidden Leaf, Kush Gang, and Firehouse. Now, for breakfast with the Kush Gang this morning, we have another special waffle treat. We have strawberry waffles, or as you called them, Peanut Gallery, stroffles, as well as cherry kush juice, and because we're thinking big thoughts today, 2 bottles of drip. This whole 6 degrees thing, you know, the math of it was some pretty big stuff for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then...
I'm sorry, I'm going back a couple of steps.
Okay.
If it's 2 bottles of drip, it's no longer drip, it's flow.
Oh, not with this stuff. It's thick enough it drips.
And now I have a Disney song in my head. Thank you, both of you.
I'll take Disney over what was going through my head.
I'm not sure what song it is.
Please. Enlighten us. This will be fun.
The song from Encanto where she's talking about being under pressure and everything dripping.
That is a whole lot of flavor all at once.
It's a good song. Unfortunately, I can't remember a damn thing about it.
So far behind on my Disney movies. Sorry.
That is one that is my nephew's favorite. So the last couple times that I've been over to their house, I saw it like 5 or 6 times because it was just on repeat.
There are definitely worse movies to be on repeat.
Yeah.
How dare you be behind on corporate overlord movies?
Pretty easily. We are an independent corporate overlordship. We are wholly owned, not WHOLEY. It's HOLY, owned, subsidiary of Nestor Industries. And Mr. Nestor decided that I should be concentrating all of my efforts on on building my ability to create content. So, a lot of escapist media has been redacted from my watching list.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, folks, a vote for Trevor Stewart 1308 in 2028 is a vote for the dictator you deserve.
I swear, if you somehow manage to get elected to some government office, I'm going to sit and laugh.
There's nothing keeping me from it at this point.
No, there's nothing keeping you from it at this point.
No.
But that does not change the fact that I'm going to sit and laugh. And then I'm going to run away before you try to tag me for doing anything in whatever administration it is.
If you stuck around to laugh, you've waited too long.
Oh no, I can laugh at a distance.
If I actually get elected, you've waited too long. You're already voluntold.
At least I know that you'll be a somewhat more sane dictator than the one we currently have.
That's true.
And he's overrated.
While I generally tend to agree with you, at least a small modicum is necessary to have things function smoothly, unlike what we have seen.
No, not entirely. Consistency. You can be consistently insane in the same consistent direction and things will function. But if you are consistently in inconsistent directions, everything's just tearing itself apart.
Which is what is going on now.
You know, better than one, but worse than Trevor would be Shea Gorath in charge. We have cheese everywhere.
Maybe. There may be cabbages. There may just be heads rolling around.
I might get a real Wabbajack to play with.
Che Gorath is just the less aggressive version of Bill Cipher.
Probably why I like him more than Bill Cipher.
Bill Cipher, for those of you who don't know, is the antagonist in the cartoon Gravity Falls. And Bill Cipher is pretty much chaos incarnate.
Angry chaos incarnate.
Yes. Very angry.
Yeah.
Very, very angry, very malicious chaos incarnate.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the one.
I would probably, well, no. I definitely had questions if he was involved with the movie the other night. All those triangles suddenly showing up.
What movie?
Saw Ares, Tron Ares.
Oh. How was that?
Better than I was expecting. Still not great. Massive amounts of plot holes. But enjoyable.
Fair enough.
I liked it. The main female bad guy really reminded me of Grace Jones from the Bond movies.
Okay.
She definitely had the I am a very strong female and I am terrifying down really well.
You know, I feel like Grace Jones is good at that.
Mhm.
she is particularly good at doing that. Well, all right. We are gonna talk about or watch a video about how we can build community to protect ourselves in an anarchist state, and how the 6 degrees principles work their way into that. We are watching a video by Andrewism today. And it is going to build on yesterday's video about, or not yesterday's, last week's video about the 6 degrees. So, shall we get us started?
Yes, we can.
I'm not gonna lie, I use Grammarly every time I write. It helps me
Okay.
get the best grade.
That was not what I meant to do.
That's okay.
Let's try this a different way. That's not what I meant to do either. There we go. Now, I've got to come back over here. There we go. And you guys should be able to hear that. And there we go.
Grades possible while depleting.
This is the third body we found this month. Our community's getting nervous. All signs point to a killer on the loose. A predator snatching lives with no mercy. Without government or police, what do we do? One of the most pressing questions asked of anarchists like myself is how Anarchy intends to deal with, to put it bluntly, the bad people. You know what I mean? The criminals, the serial killers, warlords and rapists. The worst of the worst. For those not in the know, anarchism is the philosophy and practice that opposes all hierarchy and authority, along with their justifying dogmas, and proposes the unending pursuit of anarchy, a world without rule, where autonomy, mutuality, and free association form the basis of our society. Such a definition clashes with the mainstream idea of anarchy as one of violent chaos, but such an idea comes from the faulty assumption that authority is necessary for social order. Anarchists seek to challenge that assumption and put forward a radical vision of what could be without the domination of authorities. For further explanation, you can check out my video on how anarchy works. Back to the question of bad people, you're gonna get all sorts of answers to the question of how to deal with them from all sorts of self-identified anarchists, even answers that I wouldn't consider consistent with anarchy. You'll get responses that range from philosophical quibbles over defining badness, to attributing all badness to the system, to basically recreating the state and policing but slapping the anarchy label on it. So let's get into the question of bad people in a world without authority. We're gonna explore the bad, the ugly, and maybe, just maybe, the good too. Stay tuned. They say if it bleeds, it leads, so it's no surprise that crime dominates the media landscape. From old-fashioned newspapers to online feeds, you'll find reports on the latest murder, drug bust, or robbery. True crime pages reach millions of people daily. TV shows dramatize the criminal underworld, either from the police or the criminal's points of view. The media thrives on the attention captured by crime. It's quick to dub rampant crime as anarchy, which of course demands the imposition of law and order to keep us safe. Because that's what we all crave, right? Safety, security, peace of mind. In the name of these things, we sacrifice our privacy and freedom. We take our laptops and electronics out of our bags. We move through spaces with omnipresent security cameras. We cross borders according to the power of the passport afforded to us by the fortune of our birth. The problem is that no matter how much we sacrifice, no matter how stringent our security protocols or harsh our laws and punishments, we're still no closer to the safety we seek. There will always be more to sacrifice in the name of necessity. The law varies across the world, as do crime rates. But whether your country is a hotspot or a haven, there are fundamental problems with the state's approach to justice. For one, most crimes, whether violent crimes or property crimes, go entirely unreported. In criminology, this is known as the dark figure of crime. For all the propaganda that fills the airwaves, the police are quite bad at dealing with even reported crime, so many people don't even bother. It's very difficult to get global statistics on this, but even in the incarceration capital of the world, it appears that very few serious crimes end with an arrest, let alone a conviction. Of those convictions, around 5% or more may be wrongful convictions. The rates are even worse when it comes to reports, arrests, and convictions for sexual assault. This is in a country with the most highly funded police in the world, yet they fail by their own measurements of success. And what a standard of success it is to consider a crime solved once you sent a criminal to the school of crime we call prison, a place where people are treated like animals and thus behave in kind, just to be released back into the world with nothing done to alleviate the causes of crime in the first place. I wonder what happens next. And yet, despite this piss-poor performance, people still believe in the police. No matter how bad they are at their jobs, their myth proves more potent than their reality. People are comforted by the idea that there's this higher power that is fighting for them. The assumption being, of course, that the police are there to fight the bad guys. That those guns would never be turned on you, that those bad guys you fear will never seek the badge themselves, that your demographic won't be next, that falsified or withheld evidence, coerced or mistaken witnesses, and inadequate legal defense won't stand in the way of your freedom, that you'll never be locked up or worse in the name of law and order. The justice system not only fails to address the injustices within its purview, but also enables injustice. It might convict you for stealing a loaf of bread, but a capitalist can steal the future of the entire planet once they have the right paperwork. The state can limit your freedom of movement with a fresh piece of legislation. It'll throw you in prison and subject you to all manner of torture and abuse, but it's okay because it's legal torture and legal abuse. Still, pointing to the flaws of the current system is not an automatic win for anarchy. Criticism of the existing system doesn't make every alternative viable by default. There are more than two choices, and far be it from me to set up a false dichotomy. So how does anarchy deal with crime? It doesn't. The category of crime is a product of hierarchical social relation.
So right now, I feel like we're in the definitions section. Sort of the background, getting to understand, how to define anarchy. Because it really isn't this violent rejection of humanity that it's sold to us as. I really do agree with Andrewism about the definition of anarchy. An attempt to throw off power structures and exist in an egalitarian world. Even though that is antithetical to my own political leanings, I guess. I'm very much a highly centralized power structure. Whereas what Andrewism speaks of is a very highly decentralized power structure. I may want the highly structured power structure, the highly centralized, highly structured, bureaucratic power structure. It may take the Vogons forever to do it, but they did eliminate Earth and all its creatures. It was effective eventually.
Well, that's just like saying that Grand Moff Tarkin eliminated all crime in Alderaan.
Yeah, he did. Remember, I'm Vadarian. I'm a Vadarian leftist.
Yeah, that's why
That's why I made the comparison.
Thank you.
annoying.
While I enjoy this as a comedic stance, and I preach it as a, as basically as a joke.
Mhm.
I do like the idea of a large government that is there to facilitate the well-being of its people. I see a lot of value in anarchy as described by Andrewism, and I think it would be a mistake for me to think that my way would be better than their way. I can see a world where both exist harmoniously together for the betterment of the people. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Mhm.
I do have ideological differences from this presenter.
Fair.
Specifically, a legal order with the authority to categorize actions as either legal or illegal. Crime is defined as either an act which is prohibited by the laws of the state or any omission of an act mandated by the state, where this act or omission is subject to punishment by the state. So the concept of crime is incompatible with anarchy. That's okay. Anarchists are not concerned with violations against the state anyway. We are, however, concerned with harm and harm reduction. We are concerned with the harm of slavery, whether the state deems it legal or not. We are concerned with the harm of pollution, whether it's allowed by law or not. We are concerned with the harm of killing, whether it is considered lawful or unlawful. There is no authority in anarchy that can prohibit harm, but that doesn't mean that everything is permitted, because there's no authority to permit harm either. Nothing is illegal and nothing is legal. In such an illegal environment, as anarchist Sean Wilbur puts it, our focus will necessarily shift from questions of law and order to considerations of expectations and consequences. People will still seek to preempt and resolve conflicts, and even develop norms and best practices, with the knowledge that everyone is expected to be responsible for their own behavior, because how they choose to act with their freedom will face responses, positive and negative, from those who are equally free. As Wilbur notes, whether people take the reduction of harm to be an ethical principle or simply a practical necessity of anarchic society, and ultimately, however they individually define harm, the individual concern to avoid harm to oneself is likely to lead to a general social concern with the avoidance of harm. People may practice mediation when conflicts unfold, or engage in transformative justice when harm has been committed. Mediation is a voluntary conflict resolution approach that involves a mediator without a personal stake in the outcome, getting involved in a dispute between individuals or groups to aid them in reaching a mutually satisfactory decision. Transformative justice is a holistic approach that seeks to acknowledge the connections between individual and systemic forms of harm, based on 3 core principles. 1. Protecting the victim and providing them with the space to heal. 2. Protecting the overall community and providing it with the space to heal and reflect. And 3. Working collaboratively with the harmful actor to identify what is necessary to prevent further harm. Transformative justice can't be rushed for the sake of peace. It can be exhausting or even endangering if not carefully practiced. It is not easy work, especially when complicated by popularity or privilege. And most importantly, it doesn't apply to every situation. We'll get into that more a bit later. I wish there was an easy answer, but there will never be a single, all-encompassing solution to every instance of harm forever. Thankfully, certain kinds of harm that may be prevalent today, like theft, may be greatly reduced thanks to people's needs being met in anarchy. Through social revolution, through breaking down prejudices and stigmas, restoring the commons and networks of care, and empowering people to control their own lives, we can address poverty, relative deprivation, lack of education, and many of the other roots of today's crime. Not to mention all the non-criminalized systemic harm that will become impossible to maintain in the absence of authority, like capitalist exploitation. Interpersonal prejudices might persist and must constantly be opposed, but without authority, the worst excesses of discrimination, such as in housing, can be far more easily addressed. We can further reduce harm through the development of consultative associations, groups that are formed around a shared interest in gathering and disseminating information to inform people's decisions. One such association may focus on developing food safety standards. Another may seek to gather data on local resource limits. Yet another may investigate instances of harm with no clear culprit to gather the facts of each case. But ultimately, no matter how socioeconomically just our world becomes, we'll still have to deal with harm, because no system can entirely eliminate harm. We can do better than the law does because the law is a particularly flawed way of dealing with harm, way too inflexible for the messy complexities of reality, and too rigid for the nuances of each specific case. But even if we make the world a better place for all and eliminate most causes of criminality, even if we counteract and deconstruct many of the harmful ideologies that exist today, we will still have to deal with some percentage of simply bad people. Defining bad people is an inherently flawed and subjective exercise. But if we have to use such an overly simplistic term, I'd say that from my perspective, bad person isn't a fixed identity, but a section on a spectrum of actions and ideologies that I consider actively harmful. A bad person is someone who consistently and deliberately harms others, ignores consent, refuses accountability, and upholds systems of domination. Those who derive pleasure from the death and suffering of others. Those who seize petty or grand positions of authority to dominate others with impunity. Those who use and abuse others, sexually or otherwise. Our social conditions play a major role in who people become. So by transforming our conditions, we can expect to reduce the number of bad people that emerge in our world. But despite our changes to the system reducing their prevalence, there may always be some fraction of the populace whose commitments to cruelty, domination, and manipulation are too deeply entrenched and immune to change. People like the mystery killer at the beginning of this video. In anarchist William Gillis's essay on bad people, he describes them as people who are not just merely passing through badness, but who have taken it in and bonded to it. The state cannot protect us from these people. It's a comforting fantasy, but it falls apart with the understanding that those same bad people we fear are likely to pursue those positions of power to extend their ability to harm. Rapists and serial killers who are protected by the badge or the office they hold. Many arguments have been made for ACAB, but I appreciate Gillis's argument that policing attracts rot. The role of the police is to preserve simplistic hierarchies and rules with violence, to maintain order. That is to say, to make the world legible to the simple-minded, and to exercise unrivaled brute force to make this so. If police are bureaucrats with guns, as David Graeber puts it, they are so both to serve our highest rulers, and because a great many more, in hunger for simplicity, allow issues of conflict and security to be offloaded upon a very small number of people who are almost uncheckable. The role of policing attracts, facilitates, and is best performed by pre-existing bad people. Any serious harm reduction strategy must seek to make authority impossible. In a world without authority, we have to deal with bad people ourselves. With that in mind, welcome to game theory. But not that game theory. Game theory is a field of study. A few months ago, I watched a...
I near about lost it when he did that, when I first saw the video and he did that.
Uh-huh.
And that's just a theory. A game theory. So, we have, I feel like, the definitional part of the video out of the way. And we're about to get into the 6 degrees and the community building and the reforms. I don't know if reforms are the right word. The relationships that we have to build to alleviate authority.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're about to start building on the Veritasium video we watched last week.
Okay.
A video by Veritasium, which presented an approach to the famous prisoner's dilemma in a way that affirms a key component of the anarchist strategy for resisting bad people. I'll let Veritasium explain the premise and then summarize the full video. Link below.
So, let's play a game. A banker with a chest full of gold coins invites you and another player to play against each other. You each get 2 choices. You can cooperate, or you can defect. If you both cooperate, you each get 3 coins. If one of you cooperates but the other defects, then the one who defected gets 5 coins and the other gets nothing. And if you both defect, then you each get a coin. The goal of the game is simple, to get as many coins as you can. So, what would you do? Suppose your opponent cooperates, then you could also cooperate and get 3 coins. Or you could defect and get 5 coins instead, so you are better off defecting. But what if your opponent defects instead? Well, you could cooperate and get no coins, or you could defect and at least get 1 coin. So no matter what your opponent does, your best option is always to defect.
Now, if your opponent is also rational, they will reach the same conclusion and therefore also defect.
As a result, when you both act rationally, you both end up in the suboptimal situation, getting 1 coin each, when you could have gotten 3 instead.
The thing about a lot of problems is that they're not a single prisoner's dilemma.
Impalas see each other day after day, and the same situation keeps happening over and over again. So that changes the problem. Because instead of playing the prisoner's dilemma just once, you're now playing it many, many times. And if I defect now, then my opponent will know that I defected, and they can use that against me in the future. So what is the best strategy in this repeated game?
The rest of the video is spent exploring the studies done by Robert Axelrod to find the best strategies for success in such a game. He ran tournaments that tested every strategy against every other strategy to see who would win overall. In the first tournament, each strategy played 200 rounds with every other strategy, and the simplest strategy, tit for tat, won. Tit for tat starts every game with cooperation and then mirrors its opponent's previous move. In addition to tit for tat, Axelrod found that strategies that were nice, meaning they sought cooperation and didn't defect first, tended to perform better than the nasty strategies, which defected first. But they weren't just nice, they were also retaliatory, meaning they punished defection quickly, forgiven, meaning they didn't hold a grudge, and clear, meaning predictable and understandable. In the second
That's the
tournament,
fourth
new
one.
strategies were submitted, but once again tit for tat won. And most top strategies were nice and forgiving. When Axelrod ran a simulation that mimicked natural selection, successful strategies, which were almost all nice, multiplied, while nasty ones faded over time. The nasty ones that didn't go entirely extinct plummeted in numbers. Tit for tat initially struggled in one of Axelrod's experiments when he attempted to account for the noise of real life, where mistakes and misunderstandings can happen, but a simple tweak to its strategy to make it slightly more forgiving enabled it to break the cycle of retaliation and perform much better. In other words, occasionally turning the other cheek can disrupt negative spirals. So, what does this have to do with Anarchy? Here's where Gillis provides some additional insights, this time in his article, What's in a Slogan. In predominantly cooperative mixed strategy systems, some parasitic or predatory strategies may persist on the fringes, the bad people. But the most effective long-term strategies not only maintain cooperation and retaliate to harm against themselves, but also retaliate in cases of harm against others. In other words, radical solidarity. Of course, as Gillis points out, anthropologists didn't need fancy simulations to discover this reality. They just talked to people living in stateless societies. Anarchy is not merely a stateless society, but I believe we can expect similar or even more proactive strategies to arise. Remember those traits for success? They're nice, retaliatory, forgiving, and clear. Similarly, in Anarchy, we can expect cooperation, rehabilitation, and clear expectations and consequences. It may be in our best interest in most cases to de-escalate conflicts and explore other options, since acting recklessly may only create further harm, but sometimes we may decide to consciously cause harm in response to harm. As Wilbur put it, in those instances where the conscious use of harm to prevent further harm seems to be, in the specific context, the only option that appears open to us, presumably we will remain faithful enough to our analysis not to pretend that even necessity can authorize our actions. Like any other action in Anarchy, self-defense can be neither legal nor illegal. Ultimately, as I said before, each act is taken of one's own responsibility. There is no law or authority or majority approval that can absolve you of that responsibility for your actions. Also, when I speak of inflicting consequences on bad people, I don't exclusively mean defensive force. One of the more underrated tools in our arsenal is the social boycott. In Anarchy, as a consequence of free association, our society will be composed of a web of relations that can make such collective action a viable means of resistance. Even an organized minority that refuses to engage with anyone who supports a bad person has the capacity to exercise immense social pressure and thus create meaningful consequences. Bad people and their predatory strategies will remain on the fringes.
Hidden in there, in that last concept, was a bit of the 6 degrees idea. You know, that, and I think they're gonna expand to get to that, but if they don't, I wanna stop and mention this quickly. That you know, we're a society built on free association, and our society is a large web of interconnected relationships. And if we have, and as he's talking about social boycott, if we have the social will and the personal will for harm reduction, we can cut those harmful individuals out of the networks so that they cannot spread harm. Not necessarily harmful people. He's working really hard to not say people, or they're working really hard to not say people. They're saying strategies.
Mm-hmm.
So if we, if we isolate and excommunicate those strategies, those harmful strategies, we will actively reduce harm
Mm-hmm.
without having to resort to physical force or physical violence. I'm not going to say that exile or social excommunication is not a form of violence, though, because I do kind of think it is. All right.
Fair enough.
Anything to add to that?
No, I don't think so at the moment.
Okay. All right.
Of anarchy for as long as we stand up for ourselves and those around us and leave no hierarchies left for them to climb. No more outsourcing our safety. It is all of our responsibility to ensure that white supremacists, former cops, wannabe cultists, and fundamentalist gangs are met with resistance at every step. We don't try to debate them out of their position. We don't give them an inch so that they can take a mile. We don't beg them to see our humanity. We make their attempts to harm others as costly as possible, by every means available to us. Those who seek to reform for the better will be met with those willing to do that work. But for the fringe few who continue to hurt, torture, and kill others for the love of the game, we meet them with force when necessary. That includes the rapists and abusers. I'm not going to be self-censoring rape with grape or anything like that, so I'm pretty sure YouTube won't like this. Consider supporting the Patreon if you also despise the censorship and trivialization of important topics by YouTube's policies. I'm zeroing in on this particular category of bad people to make something very clear. To quote anarchist Lee Secuta's intimate authoritarianism, abuse is not individual pathology. Abuse is not an unfortunate mistake. Abuse is the form that systematic oppression takes on an interpersonal level. It is an agent of patriarchy, ableism, capitalism, and white supremacy. It is intimate authoritarianism, and must be resisted just as strongly as we endeavor to challenge authoritarianism on a structural level. Rape culture is a war against entire populations of people. Rapists and abusers relish domination. They get off on suppressing the agency of others. They are just as much ideological enemies as feds, fascists, and fundamentalists, and they must be resisted just as directly and consistently as we resist any other agents of oppression. This is why trying to rehabilitate them through an accountability process should not be the default response. Our time, energy, and resources are limited. As Gillis points out, you're not going to get the rapist or abuser to change their whole predatory motivation by making them read some feminist theory. They might just learn some new performative language to use while continuing to prey on their victims. Or years of effort get wasted on reforming a predator who may have had a terrible childhood but never had any interest in change in the first place. Worse yet is when accountability processes are hijacked by the folks involved. Gillis describes cases where the perpetrator's friends used the process to protect the perpetrator and marginalize the survivor, or the mediator sought personal prestige, or everybody just wanted to restore the community by suppressing conflict, which eventually led to the survivor being expelled instead of the perpetrator. In her article, Activist Scenes Are No Safe Space for Women, activist Tamara K. Nopper describes cases where survivors of abuse in activist spaces were dismissed and shunned while their abuser continued to be supported. I agree with Lisa Cuta's position that, as with anti-fascist work, our priority must be on destroying the abuser's capacity to carry out harm, not their rehabilitation. Let me be clear, I know not all situations are cut and dry. Though extremely rare, false accusations do happen and should be taken seriously without being weaponized against survivors. Also, I know that in sexual situations, miscommunications happen. Otherwise, decent people can unintentionally cause harm. Not every instance of consent violation is necessarily driven by a dominative value system. Of course, such instances should still be addressed according to the wishes of the person affected, and such instances can be avoided with more education on enthusiastic consent. But these instances are a far cry from the ideologically driven actors who knowingly and repeatedly violate people because they're motivated by power and control. Don't get me wrong, bad people can change. I'm not taking rehabilitation off the table. But the people who genuinely change their values and behavior do so because they genuinely want to, not because they've been peer pressured into an accountability process. David Graeber once said, bullying is not just a relation between bully and victim. It's really a three-way relation between bully, victim, and everyone who refuses to do anything about the aggression. This dynamic also applies to other forms of abuse. In Anarchy and its Pursuit, it is all of our responsibility to actively resist bullies, abusers, rapists, and authoritarians. In Anarchy and its Pursuit, we keep us safe. We're not always going to get along with each other, but we have to reach a point where when push comes to shove, we have each other's backs. Many of us are unprepared for the level of responsibility and initiative that Anarchy requires of us. The status quo breeds passivity and apathy. We're taught to obey, wait, and depend on others to act first, even when we are more intimately aware of the situation than any distant authority could ever be. But that's why social revolution must develop in us the power and drive to act on our own initiative, to stand up to all forms of authority and prejudice, and to make the world we seek so compelling that all but the most stubborn will be drawn to join our efforts. The status quo persists thanks in large part to the role of systemic inertia. It's entrenched and difficult to see beyond, so it persists. That's why we need to generate our own inertia. We need to create spaces and cultures where autonomy, solidarity, responsibility, and mutuality are second nature, where disagreement is honestly reflected through our approach to organizing, so that it is easier to go against the grain. We need to build a critical mass of free people who make it so that free association and resistance to authority become the new normal. All this talk about resisting bad people might give you the impression that anarchy is just an endless struggle against endless threats. But before we spiral into despair, it's worth remembering that most people aren't bad people. In fact, one of the biggest lies propping up the status quo is this idea of our inherent wickedness. So let's take a step back and ask what most people are really like. I recently read Humankind: A Hopeful History by Rutger Bregman. It's a great antidote to the steady stream of media that seeks to confirm our negativity bias. The mainstream narrative about human nature is so intensely misanthropic that there are people who genuinely believe that the Purge movies can be treated like an anthropological study, or that Lord of the Flies is an accurate reflection of how children would behave in times of crisis, even though a real-life version played out very differently. Both The Purge and Lord of the Flies are excellent contemporary examples of what Bregman calls veneer theory, the popular Hobbesian idea that civilization is a thin mask covering our true, savage instincts. In case you haven't heard of him, Thomas Hobbes was a philosopher from the 17th century who painted a very grim picture of life before the rise of states. He called it solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. The reality of our stateless history is far more interesting. It isn't the nightmare of Hobbes or the romantic picture of Rousseau. We still have a lot to learn, but from what we have learned so far, the popular caricature of the brutal, knuckle-dragging caveman...
I was never exactly sold on the Hobbesian description of pre-society life. I was also never sold on the binary of solitary pre-society and what we have now. Some monolithic, unstoppable status quo. I feel like I've always felt like there were in-between spaces where people would thrive, where people could thrive. A lot of these structures described here are structures from the commune from my childhood. I recognize them as, as bits of that. And the commune from my childhood is one of those in-between places between the Hobbesian brutish life and, the current existence. What were you about to say?
One of the things that stuck out just now is the comparison to Lord of the Flies.
Yes, the idea that, well, Lord of the Flies being one of the texts associated with veneer theory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has been a very long time since I read that book.
Yeah.
But
But
my dealings with little kids Like, all right, little kids are need driven. They are by modern standards, by Victorian standards, because that's where a lot of our modern stuff comes from. Very selfish individuals, because everything in their world revolves around them and making sure their needs are met.
Right.
But most of the things that model on that and look at that very pure, centralized notion of being selfish because you need your needs met only or usually only equate physical needs.
Mm-hmm.
They don't take into account that there are emotional and social needs that also are being driven to be met. And the
Okay.
number of kids that I've seen out of the blue walk up and look at, their friend who is hurting and try to help them and want to make them feel better, but they don't know how. Because, they're 2. But at 2 and 3, they're wanting to help. They're wanting to protect. They're wanting to do.
They're showing empathic behavior.
They're showing empathic behavior. There are higher concepts like sharing and actual true empathy, which are not solidified until the brain is roughly between 5 and 6 years old, because at that point, most of the pruning for unused neurons has happened, and you can build on what was actually solidly there before. So there's definitely a case for teaching and reinforcing the behaviors you want to see and keep seeing.
Okay.
But we did have kids that came out of the foster system. We did have kids that, up until, they got to us, they had not been taught those empathic things that were exhibiting them anyway. All we did was reinforce what they had naturally.
Okay.
Quote, naturally. So, for me, like, everything is going to turn into Lord of the Flies and da-da-da. It's like, why are we still trying to base this off of a pack of wild ferrets that have been tortured?
Right. You, at a fundamental level, disagree with the idea that humans are necessarily avaristic. I really had a hard time coming up with a better word than greedy, and I don't feel like avaristic really covers it either.
I mean, humans want their needs met.
Right. But past that, you think that humans tend towards community.
Well,
And taking care of community. Which is why society built itself.
The earliest sign of civilization was not people growing things. It was not people banding together in camps. The earliest sign of civilization is finding skeletons where there were old breaks that had healed and had been treated.
Okay.
It's not a case of you've got the resources to treat it. It's a case of you have the willingness to treat it. And the fact that we have that willingness.
I do agree that on a basic level... Hey, Chris. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. I do agree that on a basic level, we are much more positive than given. Yeah, got there first. Society, hello. Oh no, that was just supposed to be hello.
Yeah, I was trying to spell society, so I was in there for spell check, and I forgot to delete it. Typed hello.
This happens.
I get it. I do feel like there's also another indictment of veneer theory here, and that's that we are not just a veneer. We are not just this top level of society, of peaceful society. Like, we are also all of that substructure, that superstructure, all of those different things that have come together to build this the way that it is. All of this other work has had to been done to get from what we disagree is untrue about the Hobbesian, you know, the
Yes.
Hobbesian idea. But even if the Hobbesian idea was true, we're a,
Each.
each step on the way has been a veneer in that
Mm-hmm.
case. And at this point, we are some very thick plywood. We are no longer a veneer. We are just the top layer on some very thick plywood.
I'm so really glad you said plywood, not particle board.
Well, particle board isn't veneer based. It isn't layer based. It's
No, but
I see
the Hobbesian
American
thing is more like
society. Hmm?
the Hobbesian thing is basically comparing us to particle board.
I was gonna
Once you
say
take that hard protective surface off,
it
and
all
you go
falls
back to the
apart.
spongy, peely muck inside. Yes.
Right. And that is really what the Hobbesian idea is. And I disagree with that. I see it much more right, like we have a whole lot of structures in place to keep from turning into that Hobbesian, you know, nightmare. Or even going back to returning to a Victorian idea, like ideals. Like, we're right now we are stripping back about a century or two of, but that's only a couple of layers of veneer. You know, we're not, as the bit of our society is collapsing around us, it's not that it's gonna take us back to brutish caveman times. It's taking us back to the 1900s. You know, it's taking us back to,
You know,
it's
They-
trying to return us to a Jim Crow that never was. Particle board, just layers therein, a junkyard horde. Particle board, just lays there in a junkyard horde. It's as close as I can get to the tune of Particle Man. Particle Man, does everything a particle can.
Delivered a lot more flatly.
Yeah.
Particle man,
Eh.
particle man. That's whatever a particle can.
Well, I figured if I was going to be delivering particle board, it should be flat.
I need more tea for this.
I'm saying your delivery wasn't flat enough.
Oh. Ow. It's an indictment of my boards. So yeah,
No, it's
huh? What? What? Who?
no, it's a
What?
war crime. It is
Try
a
that.
war crime to leave particle board out in the rain.
Why do you say that?
'Cause that's just waterboarding.
Oh.
I'm
Oh.
going to go get my tea. On that note, I'm going to go get my tea.
I. Ow. That was, yeah.
That was yeah, indeed.
So, I do feel like, though, I do feel like what Andrewism is proposing is a different way of looking at the structures that build up society. I think what Andrewism is talking about is a much more fluid idea than can be represented in this board analogy.
Well, my read on it is that he's suggesting that from his definition of anarchy, it would be best to have no structures.
Again, I think, well, I don't know that structure, like no structures. I think it's decentralized structures. Because he's talking about communities making decisions for communities. You see what I mean? Like there is a community structure there, right? There's some sort of community structure there. It's an egalitarian structure. And so I think the definition of structure needs to be more fluid so that it incorporates, it can both refer to the harmful power structures that were there before are here now, and the less harmful, the harm reduction based social structures, egalitarian social structures that he's proposing, that they're proposing, or that are, you know, those not necessarily just the ones that they're proposing, but all measure of. Do you see where I'm coming from with that? Like there's still a structure there. It's just our use of language isn't quite grasping the concept.
Part of the problem is the use of language is contradicting itself, thus making it harder to grasp the actual underlying concept that you're saying he's trying to get to.
Yes. And I think it's my use of language is being imperfect here.
Even his or theirs.
I think they're a he. I don't know for sure, so I'm just being really careful about it. I mean,
I'm sorry, I'm perfectly happy with using the gender neutral they or he. I mean,
That's
yes,
fair.
he is very specifically a gender bias, but
You
it has
know,
also been used quite prevalently as a gender neutral for not knowing.
mm, I mean, plus they are pretty mask presenting, mustache, beard. That has a very masculine, you know, presentation.
It took me a very short moment, but it was a full stop moment when you shortened the term mask to
Oh yeah.
mask, because that has completely different collection of meanings than masculine.
Oh, it really does.
So that was a great way to grind my gears. Like, I'm following what you're saying. Is what?
Wait, they're masquerade presenting?
I mean, you gotta have a reason to wear the Harlequin garb anyway.
All right, you're back. We can get back to the video.
Sorry.
Yes. Let's get back to the video before I break into Family Opera.
Inside my mind.
It's just an
Wrong
insulting
song.
smear on our ancestors. As I've explored on this channel before, human nature and our prehistoric past are far more varied and interesting than either simple narrative can appreciate. There's one apparent constant though: cooperation. For better and for worse. Even without looking to the past, we can see how people behave in times of crisis today. As activist Rebecca Solnit found in her book A Paradise Built in Hell, it's when disaster strikes that our better natures are most often revealed. For the most part, people help each other, they organize, they share. Recent studies on the bystander effect theory found that in reality, across the several major cities they studied, bystanders nearly always intervene to help in emergencies. Imagine the level of social responsibility that we might observe in Anarchy, where people have an even greater stake in the social order. Now, I'm not saying that people are perfect angels, but I don't think it should be controversial to say that most of us have a baseline decency, even though we live in a system that distorts that decency. This entire machine is structured in ways that replicate certain ideas and reinforce certain behaviors. It manufactures scarcity, bombards us with propaganda, and incentivizes exploitation. The system doesn't determine all of our behavior. People can still cooperate to distribute free breakfasts and resist injustice. But like I said, our cooperative nature can manifest for better and for worse. People can also cooperate to violently maintain racial hierarchy through lynchings. The system has its ideological diehards, the truly locked-in bad people, but that's not where it gets all of its support. A sense of camaraderie, the material benefits of privilege, the pressure to conform among the in-group, and the psychological and or physical distancing of certain out-groups are the factors which keep this oppressive system going. Those are also, coincidentally, the factors that foment genocide. It's how an otherwise decent humanity can cooperate to do some horrifyingly atrocious things. It's why as anarchists, wherever we find ourselves, it's our responsibility to interrupt these factors. We can't settle for merely opposing the overt acts of authority. We must challenge even the subtle naturalization of hierarchy at home, at school, at work, and throughout society. And we must build the conditions where our values can flourish. So, can anarchy protect us from bad people? Anarchy doesn't promise a perfect world. It doesn't offer a final solution to every act of harm and cruelty. But it does offer a better starting point. One that refuses to defer to authority, outsource responsibility, appease abusers, or hand bullies a badge and call it justice. Instead, it requires each of us to recognize our role in opposing domination, developing solidarity, and cultivating responsibility, especially when things get tough, messy, and personal. My answers are not going to be satisfying enough for everybody. Perhaps I was too vague or too considerate of the unique context of each situation. Perhaps it's my refusal to sweep our world's complex and messy problems under the oppressive rug of the state. Perhaps I didn't entertain your desire for anarcho law and order. Perhaps it's because I didn't automatically defer to rehabilitation. Perhaps my lack of pacifism in the face of abusers has made you uncomfortable. Perhaps you consider my assertion of human decency hopelessly naive. That's okay. I'm trying to be real about what we're up against and what it takes to build something different. If the kind of world I want to help build even partially interests you, all I ask is that whoever you are and wherever you are, do whatever you can. Talk to your people, challenge harm, build trust, and never forget, we keep us safe. All power to all the people. Peace. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share with fellow peoples. Thanks to the seedlings, the saplings, and especially the roots for making all this possible, including our newest member, Abhinav Ramachandran. You can join these beautiful humans and support me too on patreon.com/SEPmp. Check out my other videos for a range of radical topics. Thanks again. Peace.
Right now, it's Thompson Creek's.
All right. So now that's the, the follow-up there, the stuff that I feel like he didn't say, that the connections I feel like, or they didn't make, I feel like were that in this 6 degrees that reaches around the world through collective action, we can excise the dangerous concepts, not just concepts, the dangerous behaviors, the harmful behaviors, and that through community building and mutual aid, we can strengthen those relationships that allow us to build a stronger network to sustain an active harm reductive strategy, if you will, to bring it back to the 6 degree, or the prisoner's dilemma problem. That was also about six degree connections.
Mm-hmm.
And if you remember, at the end of that video, they were talking a lot about how in certain situations, if your connections weren't close enough, one bad strategy could turn all strategies bad.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if your connections were, if you had enough proximal connections, you didn't have to get rid of all of your, you don't have to even lose, I don't remember how many, what the percentages were, but even a few proximal connections, which we'll call community, caused that activity, that behavior of the system to stop. Caused the bad strategies, the malignant strategies to isolate or to change.
Which makes absolute sense to me.
Me too.
Basically, to me, it's like being on a playground and someone is busy deciding to throw sand at everybody else.
Okay, sand.
So you remind them, okay, do you like that? No? All right, so tell them, I don't like you throwing sand. I'm not playing over here, and walk away. And if you have most of the kids over on the other side of the playground playing happily, eventually the one that is throwing sand is going to look around and go, why is no one over here playing with me? And they have the chance to realize, oh, I was not making a good choice. I can do better, and I can go back and play with my friends.
Right. Because I've been throwing sand at everybody. Nobody likes me for throwing sand.
Well, it's not nobody likes me. It's they don't like throwing sand.
Right.
And it's making the distinction between, at least with little kids, it's making the distinction between I don't like you, which is not true. They do like their friend. It's I don't like your behavior.
Okay.
Your behavior is hurting me, so I am walking away and I'm not letting you hurt me.
That's a very important distinction to be able to make, too.
Yes. But the connections thing, at least for my interpretation of it, that's kind of what it comes down to. If you've got a strong enough group of connections to say, hey, you over there that are doing this thing that's hurting us, we don't like it. We're not letting you hurt us anymore, and they walk away effectively and
Right.
that connection. And that moat of behavior is just left there trying to figure out, do I want to continue on my course? Or do I want to actually be around everybody else?
And that...
Which will also kind of go along with today's video of, instead of aiming first for reform, aim first to contain the behavior of certain, especially certain violent ones.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I get that. So I do feel like, one of the nice things about the Andrewism videos is that they're pretty hopeful.
Yes.
There's some pretty hopeful anarchy over here, And
That makes sense.
And I feel like a lot of their videos end with the answer being in community building. Building up those close connections to strengthen the system.
Which honestly, that kind of leads really nicely into that first video or first article.
Oh yeah? All right.
Yeah.
Let's pull. Oops, wrong direction. Not that one. That one.
Go up. Nope, that's the monkey. Yep. That one.
All right. California's crusader against loud commercials shares how sleeping baby inspired the new quality of life law.
Keep in mind, you have got opposing political parties coming together and forming connections because of this particular behavior that they don't like.
Community cooperation. You gotta love it, man.
Yes?
I mean. So. Ads on streaming platforms can be way too loud. Yes, they can. On Monday, California Governor Gavin Newsom signed a bill with bipartisan support that requires ads on streaming platforms to be at the same volume as programs they are attached to. In other words, no more blaring commercials leaving viewers fumbling for the remote. This is They passed a law about this on TVs.
They did, and then they found loopholes.
We heard Californians loud and clear. Newsom. Okay.
Yeah, well, you know about the person, but at least he's willing to make a good joke to lighten the mood about something.
Yeah.
He's if he manages to keep up the touch of humor that he's got with dealing with stressful situations and keep doing various things that are actually improving life for people, then he will probably win the 2028 election for president,
He
whether
could.
he wants or not.
He could. It never got a no vote on the floor. This bill never got a.
Like I said, I came across that and remembering that this was supposed to be about connections and behavior and stuff that we
Yeah.
were talking to. This
Well,
feels like this goes here.
they came together. They came together to pass a bill. I can figuratively hear the jokes.
Yes, yes, you can.
I was hoping I'd have a better one by time of air, but no.
Oh no, because
No.
we're still figuratively enjoying the silence.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Wrong band. Wrong song.
It's the sound of silence.
Yes, but Enjoy the Silence was Depeche Mode from the Dominator album.
Ah. Yes. So hopefully eventually it'll be a case of whatever you're listening to on whatever streaming service. It
They'll
will not
have
be
to.
any.
Which means, okay, so the place I really notice it, by the way, where I really, really notice it is Twitch. That's where I notice it. And it's not, they don't blare the commercials on Twitch. It's that the commercials pop up if you lower the volume, the commercials will pop up in the next commercial break, will pop up at the volume you had it at before, but your volume slider won't move.
Yep. So you end up having to lower the volume on the person you're listening to and fiddle with that constantly.
Or it'll run through that one commercial thing at the high volume, and then the next ones will be low.
Yeah.
It's just,
Not fun.
I mean, it can suck. It has its moments of that's not right.
I've
But
noticed something similar on YouTube, and I've really noticed it on other streaming platforms where they have started adding commercials to certain
okay.
things you're watching.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
last articles that you can be done and be gone
Yep.
because the headline was worth it.
Monkey running loose around rural South Carolina is caught with cup of hot coffee. And there is a monkey hanging off a car.
Forget if does the article mention how old the monkey is?
I don't know. So, but this cop. No, they don't. I don't think so.
Honestly, it was the town clerk that caught the monkey.
It's the town clerk that caught the monkey with a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody loves a cup of coffee, a good cup of coffee, right?
No such thing.
Except Peanut Gallery. Well, and Cat, actually, you don't like coffee either.
I don't drink it. I like the smell of it. It smells wonderful, and I can sort of tell the different flavors from the smell, but yeah, I can't drink it.
The idea of monkeys with coffee, I feel like that's the kind of chaos that we shoot for on this channel.
Yeah.
We really do try to be monkeys with coffee, kind of crazy, kind of chaotic here.
But they're too busy singing to put anybody down.
They're just monkeys roaming around.
Hey,
Honestly,
we're the monkeys.
my first thought on reading this was, my mother has been reincarnated as a monkey. I know where she is. Because if anybody was going to come back as an animal that was deliberately lured in by coffee, it's her.
I mean, I'm working on putting her up to the test on that. It's hard for me to resist a cup.
I figure you make it to, let's see. You make it to 70, and then you will probably be able to claim the title.
That's a lot closer than I'd like to think.
No comment on grounds that I am also included in this, because you're not that much older than me.
Just saying. As compared to the amount of time that has gone before, getting there is but a short jump.
Yes.
Hop, skip, and a jump.
Mm-hmm.
Except for just saying that makes my hips hurt.
Whatever I was about to say wasn't going to be right, so I ain't going to say it.
That is entirely fair.
It probably would have been safer if I had said makes my knees hurt.
Yep.
Oh well, too late now.
Yep.
I love you, dear.
Well, thank you guys for being here. I think this is where we're going to call it today, friends. And we are going to be raiding out. I don't know who we're raiding out to, but stick around for the raid. Thank you for being here. Thank you guys for being here. Cat, Peanut Gallery.
Yep.
Much appreciated. Thank you, Chris in the 386. Thank you, us. Anybody else? Nope.
Really?
Thank you, all you lurkers. Much love. And now is the time on the show when I say, as they say around here, 2 up, 2 down. VA, double deuces. We're out, y'all.
Wild frontier and health leather. A cowboy Kirk and a Doc Holiday. Of the specter of the girl, specter of the girl. A hot block and scatter shot. A shootout showdown at high noon. Double action quick draw with a 3-man standoff. A pale horse he rides with burning eyes. Death comes for all. You can't run, you can't hide. Living inside the lie. If you're not scared, then you'll die. Touch of fear, everyone, and the specter of the girl, specter of the girl, specter of the girl. Go hard like PvP, drone strikes, heavy casualties, heat blows, death blow, blood mode. Like Highlander, there can be only one. Live by the blade of the specter of the girl, specter of the girl, specter of the girl. Bang, bang, shoot 'em up, never learned anyone. Violent delights, violent ends, got God level cheat code. Orbital strike and a big bomb, big hole. Lottie, Dottie, lady got a shotty, full bore, pump back, hottie. Deadly mind,